Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and I have this super adorable Halloween themed ice cream tutorial to teach to you. This is a great one you can do with the kids. It's super beginner friendly, and I used a lot of colors for this. So I'm actually using the 48-piece Liquitex Basics paint set. It looks like this. I got it from Amazon. So this is nice if you're doing a tutorial with a lot of colors. It's got a lot of color options. I do list the colors I use. If you want to buy those individual colors, you can. You can also get a set of craft paints. You can customize the colors for this. So even though there's a lot of colors for this, there's options. You can simplify it. You can change colors up, and the colors I'm using are listed in the description, as well as the brushes and the canvas. So I'm using an 11 by 14 inch canvas that I've already painted black. So I just used a coat of Mars Black paint. So I usually do this on mess up paintings, and I just cover the painting with black and let it dry, and we're good to go. And so when your black canvas is dried, we're going to do the drawing of the basic shapes for our ice cream. And you can use a pencil or chalk pencil, whatever you prefer. All of those can erase if you mess up. And I'm just going to show you step by step how to draw the shapes of our ice cream. So my canvas is dry and I have a piece of chalk. I'm going to start on the left with Frankenstein ice cream, and he is a ice cream popsicle shape. So I'm going to draw that popsicle shape. It's kind of a triangular shape, so it's wide at the bottom and it goes a little bit more narrower at the top and rounded on the corners. And then we have the popsicle stick, a narrow, long oval shape. And you want to make sure you're drawing this big so it takes up the majority of the left third of the canvas. I'm going to draw the bite mark on the upper right part of Frankenstein. So I just did bumpy lines, and I'll erase that other line in a little bit. I'll go ahead and draw the screws. So just short lines and an oval. So we have the basic shape of Frankenstein, and then our middle ice cream is a cone. So we're going to do the cone. So it's a curve line at the top, triangle, and it goes all the way down to the bottom part. It lines up with the bottom of the popsicle stick. And then the ice cream, I'm just going to do some very loose curved lines. So our swirl cone, 3 bumps on each side, and then it curves to the left and makes a point for a swirly ice cream. And you can use water to erase the chalk. So I just erased that line where that bite mark is. And then this one over here on the right is a ice cream in a glass. So it's kind of a triangular glass shape with the stem and an oval for the base. It kind of looks like the letter Y with an oval on underneath the bottom of the Y. And then our ice cream top part is going to be kind of bumpy at the bottom. And then we'll do the scoop. So this one is going to be the pumpkin ice cream, and it's just one scoop. So that I did the wavy lines on the bottom that are going to be kind of overlapping the top part of the glass. And then I'm going to make a circle at the top, but I'm not going to make that circle go all the way around. It's going to stop. It's a pumpkin, so I did a stem on the top. So there are our basic shapes. When we paint these in, we'll be able to add so many details to these basic ice cream shapes. So I'm going to start painting these in, starting with Frankenstein on the left. And I'm going to go ahead and grab a number 8 round brush. By the way, I'm only using 2 brushes for this tutorial, a larger round and a smaller round. So the larger round is going to help fill in the bigger areas. The smaller round is going to help with the smaller details. And this is the color Brilliant Yellow Green. So it's an opaque yellow green color. And I am going to be using the number 8 round. So the first thing I'm going to do is paint Frankenstein on the left. So I'm going in contouring strokes, and that just means that I'm having the direction of my strokes go in the direction of the shape. So you can see how they're curving to form the shape of that ice cream bar. This brilliant yellow green color shows up really nice against the black canvas. If you look at the tubes, there's a little square that tells you if the color is going to be opaque or not. So the white represents that there's opaqueness in it. Usually it means that there's titanium white inside of the color, and the black means it's a little translucent. So if you're trying to switch the colors, I would make sure to use opaque colors for this because it'll show up against the black. If you're using a color and it's translucent, it's labeled as translucent on the tube, you can paint your shape white first and then wait for the white to dry and then go back over the white, or you can double load your color in white in the colors. So the titanium white helps it to show up against the black. So this brilliant yellow green is already pre-mixed with white in it. But if you're using like a dark green color that doesn't have white in it, you'd have to paint it white first, then dark green, or mix dark green and white together, if that makes sense. So that helps it show up against the black. But basically, all I'm doing is painting this shape in, and this is our first layer of Frankenstein ice cream, and we're going to make sure that it dries before we add more of the details. I'm going to go ahead and load Deep Green Permanent onto my palette. I'm going to use that Deep Green Permanent to create a shadow of the popsicle. So this is Deep Green Permanent. And then I'm going to grab the brush, rinse it off, dry. So on the left side of Frankenstein, he's got kind of a darker area. Maybe you can mix a little bit of that light green in there, but you don't have to do that. So I'm going to start out thin at the top and then go thicker by pressing hard with my brush. So thin at the top, press hard towards the bottom. Maybe it kind of makes it look like it's 3D. So see how it gets thin at the top, and then I press hard on the brush and it gets thicker on the bottom and kind of curves down at the bottom a little bit more. Gives some nice color variation to the popsicle. And then the popsicle stick was painted with yellow oxide. So that's this color I'm loading my palette on with, and I'll rinse, dry, lots of rinsing and switching colors in this. So having a soft rag handy to dry that brush is super helpful. And then I'm just going to paint that stick shape in with the yellow oxide. Yellow oxide is also a nice opaque color, so we don't have to add white to it or paint the first layer of it white. It shows up nice and opaque on our black canvas. That part of the video got cut off from the camera, but all I'm doing is just painting that shape in. So there's our popsicle stick, and then we can add some white. I can add another color to the popsicle stick to give it some color variation. So I'm just going to do the white on the right part, kind of what I did with the green part of Frankenstein, kind of thick and thin, just outlining the right part of that popsicle stick. Give it a little bit of highlight. And then the top part of Frankenstein I did with Vivid Violet, or actually this is not Vivid, this is called Deep Violet, and still using that round brush. So I'm going to paint the drippy sort of, I guess we can call this chocolate or icing or something. It's the top part of his head. So I'm just going to paint a drippy area right here at the top. So I'm doing curvy lines that go down to form the shape. I'm going to grab the number 4 round brush. So this is the other brush I'll be using. It's a smaller brush, and it's going to help get into these smaller areas, and see how it's a lot easier to do this with that smaller brush. So I'm just doing curvy lines that are dripping down on the top of Frankenstein's head, going down not quite to the halfway point of Frankenstein, a little bit higher than the halfway point, because remember, we got to do the eyes and mouth on him too. And the bite mark area I'm painting over with that deep violet. So if that top part of the green wasn't dry, I wouldn't have done this step. So you could like let it dry real quick and then come back, or use a hairdryer to dry that part, because otherwise that green would have mixed with that purple and turned brown. It may not be a bad thing to have it turn brown. It could be like chocolate. And then I also did white. So I outlined the bite mark with the white before that purple dried, and it kind of slightly mixed with that purple, which was nice. But outlining it with white helps it to stand out, especially since the violet is a dark color and we're next to a black background. Using the white to outline any area in this painting that looks too dark next to the black it helps create contrast. And so I'm rinsing both of those brushes. I'm going to go back in with green. I'm just going to outline this part really quick with that green. So just on the far part of it, make it dark. This green doesn't show up against the black. So I went outside the lines a little bit, and you can see how dark it looks against the black. It doesn't have titanium white in it for it to show up. So there's our first base part of Frankenstein. I'm going to do the screws on the head, and actually I want to lower these screws. So this one looks fine. Actually, I want to lower this one to where it's below the purple. You don't have to do that if you wanted to do the screw where you drew it, and that's perfectly fine. Just using that wet paintbrush to erase that screw, and then I could just kind of tap it dry a little bit. Another thing that works really well for erasing chalk is a baby wipe, because the baby wipe is not too much water to where you get all this drippy water on your canvas like the wet paintbrush, and also the chalk doesn't seem to come back after it dries. With the wet paintbrush, for some reason the chalk comes back after it dries. So I didn't have the baby wipe with me at this time, so that's why. And then so here's our other screw. So it's just a little rectangular shape and then an oval next to it. Really doesn't have to be even on each side. The nice thing about these ice cream Halloween treats is that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be even. You can change the colors. This is really one of those simple, fun, sort of let loose sort of tutorials where you don't have to stress too much about making it look perfect. But really with any of my tutorials, you do not have to make any of them look perfect. The point is to have fun and kind of make it your own. And what I'm doing with the screws is I'm using that purple to kind of add some, I guess, form to it. So I did the oval with the purple, and then used the white to kind of outline the edges on the right one. And then on the left one, I did the purple on the side of the screw, kind of opposite of what the one on the right is. Kind of gives it that 3D effect. Then I'm just using my paintbrush to kind of clean up the edges of this chalk. Again, a baby wipe works much better for this because you don't have to use too much water to erase. And then we can always wait for this to dry and then go back over with a baby wipe and just make sure all those chalk marks are gone. So the green isn't dry enough to do the face. So I'm actually going to move on to the middle part, the ice cream cone. So our ice cream cone is actually painted using the yellow oxide. So the same color as the popsicle stick. And I'll use the number 8 round brush. So that bigger round brush, because it's a bigger shape, and basically same thing, contouring strokes. So this triangle shape has angled, straight angled strokes because that's the shape. So angling one way, angling vertical in the middle, and then angling the other way. And then right here, I just did that curved shape. So doing it solid with the yellow oxide. And then I'm actually going to grab a little bit of titanium white on my brush here. So grabbing a little titanium white on the tip of the brush, I did the curve on the top, just letting that white gently blend with the yellow oxide at the top. Gives our ice cream cone some other color variation. I'm going to do it over here on the right too. So just an angled line, doing angled strokes, letting that gently blend with the yellow oxide, but not over blending it to where it's a solid color. And I'm going to leave it like that, just unblended. And so this is the ice cream. So if you did my cupcake tutorial about a couple months ago, I'm using the same concept with this. We're going to do some blending, and the trick is to not over blend the ice cream here because we want it to look swirly and two-toned. So I have brilliant purple, which is like a light lavender purple, and titanium white. So both of those colors I loaded on my palette, and I'll be using the 8 round brush. Start off by loading your 8 round in the purple and start doing contouring strokes. So this is a lot of curvy strokes. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm curving to the left to kind of paint the bottom area, and it's going to swirl. So lots of curvy swirled strokes. Grabbing the white tip of the brush, adding the white on the left part at the top part, and over here on the right, letting that white gently blend, but I'm not going to over blend. So the trick is to leave it unblended so that white only slightly blends with our purple. So I grabbed more purple, did the middle part, grabbed the white, and swirled. See how that white swirls and blends with the purple. So if I keep stroking it, it's all going to blend together. So I don't want it to over blend. I like how that looks right there. See how it swirls and just gently blends with that white with the purple. So I'm going to do the same thing at the top. Purple, white, don't over blend it. And I'm going to do swirled strokes that kind of contour and go in that direction, kind of curve around. So it looks like swirl cone ice cream in the color purple. I'm going to do a third color in here that's darker. I don't like the look of this deep violet. It's too warm of a purple for me. So I'm actually going to grab Dioxazine Purple, which is a much darker purple that blends much better with our lavender color. So I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to just do some shadowy, darker strokes in here. So kind of what I started with that deep violet. So I'm going to do at the bottom, and over here I'm going to go back over my deep violet color and just kind of letting that gently blend with the purple, and going back in with that lighter purple and kind of dimming that darker purple down a little bit. But again, don't over blend it. A little bit more white. So there's a lot more white on the left side of the ice cream and a lot more darker purple on the right side. So highlight on the left, shadow on the right. I'm just going back over and swirling gently with that white on the left and grabbing a little bit more of that darker purple, swirling it very gently on the right. So there's our swirly cone ice cream, and I'm not going to touch it anymore. I'm just going to leave it like that, because if I keep working it, the colors are just going to eventually all mush together and we're going to lose our swirly effect. So there's our bat ice cream, and of course that's got to be dried before we go and add eyes or anything else like that. We're going to do pumpkin next. And so this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier with how opaque the color is, because this is Cadmium Orange Hue, and it's a very translucent color. So let me show you what happens when we try to paint this orange. Doesn't show up as dark, as opaque. So we have to do our double load. So that means I grabbed titanium white And I can do this two ways. I can paint the whole thing titanium white, let it dry, and then go back with the orange, or I can double load. And that's kind of what I'm doing here because I already had the orange on my brush. So that's going to look very light pastel-like at first, but when this dries, I will go back over it with a coat of the orange, and the orange will show up very opaque and bright. So I'm just kind of painting in circular strokes, and then I'll go back in with some orange here. But really, for this to be super bright orange, that white has to dry all the way. So I'll go back over with another coat of that later. I'm just kind of adding some of that orange in there, letting that orange blend with the white, knowing that I'm going to go back with another coat of orange anyway, but we'll just leave it like that. That's got to dry before I could really make that any more orange looking. But what I can do is on the inside of the glass. And this one, I was okay with it not being super opaque because it's inside a glass, so it's a little bit dimmer. And so I'm just taking that orange and I'm filling that in solid. You can see how that black of the canvas shows through that color. So curved strokes inside of the glass shape. And then I have the idea to do a different color in there. So I grabbed the Brilliant Yellow Green, and you can actually do this with white and yellow to make it look like candy corn. Had that thought later, but that would look kind of cool. So I'm just doing curved strokes in there. I'm going to gently blend that Brilliant Yellow Green with the orange. So it's got kind of two different colors inside that ice cream glass. Kind of gives a candy corn effect. And then I'm going to rinse my brush off and dry it, and I'm going to do the glass. So we can't leave the glass shape like the chalk. We actually have to apply paint to it. And I have the white on the tip of my brush, and I'm just going to outline what I drew with the chalk. It's going to naturally erase the chalk as I paint over those chalk lines. So just that shape and the stem and the oval base piece. Make the stem a little bit thicker, and then I can paint inside of that oval shape. So I didn't paint that oval shape solid, it's glass, so it's supposed to be really translucent. I'm very, very gently adding that white, but not making it opaque. So I'm very lightly holding my brush and not pressing very hard. I can even use my finger to kind of smear it a little bit. I want a lot of that black still showing through because it's supposed to give the effect of glass. But also, this is a simple painting, so we don't have to make it look like realistic glass. I'm just going back over that stem and making it a little bit thicker. Adjust my oval piece down here. Make it look a little bit even on both sides. There's still a little bit of chalk showing through, but definitely when this dries, I'll go back over with a baby wipe to gently erase any chalk lines that are still showing. And so this glass here, I'm going to do a quick highlight at the top and on the side. And I'm going to very gently, this also works dry brush style, so if you loaded your brush with the white, wiped it off, and then did that technique. So I just did really quick curved strokes on the left and just kind of let those strokes sort of fade out really fast. Gives our glass a little highlight. Then I'm going to do the texture of the cone. So this one has diagonal lines going one way. So I'm just using that titanium white and doing diagonal lines. This is helpful if your cone is dry. If it's not dry, you may want to wait before doing this step. And then diagonal lines the opposite direction. So this creates our cone texture. And then I'll just kind of turn my canvas here and we'll have our diagonal lines go this way. Slightly curved diagonal lines. The first set of diagonal lines I didn't curve, but these ones I'm actually curving a little bit. So there's our ice cream cone texture. Next, I'm going to start doing the faces of this. I'm going to do Frankenstein's face next, and we need Mars black paint for that. So Mars Black on the palette and the number 4 round brush because it's a smaller detail. I'm going to start with his mouth, so very basic, just a smiley face mouth. And then 2 eyes, so rounded black circles for the eyes. So just do circle and paint it in solid. Try to make them even on each side, another circle, and paint it in solid. So that black has to dry before we do the little white dots on Frankenstein's eyes, but we can do the stitch marks. So for the stitch marks, I didn't rinse the black off my brush. I just grabbed the green so it turns into a really dark green, and I'm just doing the little stitch marks on the top left of his head, and I'll do them on the bottom right part. You can do more or less if you want. And then add a little darker part over here on the left. I'm going to use the black to slightly outline some of the screw, make that pop a little bit more. And then I'm going to do the face on our bat ice cream in the middle. So I did smiley face with the black, rinsed and dried. His eyes were done with a layer of white. So I did white circles, and then when that white dried, I went back and painted them yellow. So that's another thing. Yellow is too translucent of a color. We have to do white first and then add the yellow for it to show up. And then I did 2 triangular teeth under the mouth. Then I'm going to do the bat wings of Mr. Bat in the middle. So this is the titanium white, so I'm just going to do a curve, and then I'm going to do 2 pointed bumps, so 2 U shapes, I guess, upside down U shapes. So same thing over here on the right, curve, and then 2 bumps, bump, bump, and they're pointed. The one on the right ended up having to go under pumpkin ice cream, so there's a spacing issue. Yours might be a little different. If you want to have the wing overlap it, you can do that as well. Then I'm going to paint pumpkin ice cream. So this is orange, Cad Orange Hue. It is dry, that first layer, so you can see how much better that orange shows up now that we have the white layer painted first. And so I'm just going to paint in the pumpkin orange, the bottom part. I kind of like the look of the 2 different tones in the orange, so I will go in and purposefully add some white in it to give it some highlight. So I loaded my palette with a little bit more orange here so I can finish filling the rest of this orange up. Contouring strokes that are going in a curvy direction because our shape is a circle. And then I'm going to grab the white on my brush and I'm going to do curvy on the left and kind of just let that blend in with that orange that's wet. Just kind of let that blend in and let that white run dry. Gives our ice cream a 2-toned look. Kind of similar to how we did the purple ice cream, only we're not swirling the strokes. Go back over there with a little bit more white. Just kind of let that blend a little bit. Don't get too caught up with blending because there's going to be more details on this and the blending won't be very noticeable once we add the eyes and the chocolate syrup on this one. Then I'm going to rinse and dry and load with the Brilliant Yellow Green so I could do the stem shape at the top of the pumpkin with the Brilliant Yellow Green. So just painting that in, curve at the top. It overlaps the top part of the ice cream a bit, so that bottom piece, a little bit of a wavy line at the bottom. The stem is wide at the bottom and then it gets thinner. And there will be a layer of chocolate under this. I also grabbed a little bit of darker green to do a little bit of a two-tone shadow area in the right part. Let that darker green kind of blend with the lighter green. I wiped off my brush to get that light green off so I can add a little bit more of that darker green in there and just gently blend that with the light green. Next, I'm going to paint yellow sprinkles on Frankenstein's head. So this is Cad Yellow Light and White. You can use any yellow for this. You don't have to use the Cadmium Yellow Light Hue. It can be Cadmium Yellow Medium or Primary Yellow. I just grabbed this particular yellow. So I mixed white and yellow together because it's a dark area and I want it to show up. So that white is going to allow that yellow to be bright and opaque. And I'm just taking that and I'm doing dots with this is the number 8 round brush, so gathered a good amount of paint on the tip of the brush, and I'm just pressing and doing little tiny dots for Frankenstein's sprinkles. Put them all over. You can even put them on the edge of the popsicle, like the top edge, and have the sprinkles sticking up a little bit. So like right there. Then I'm going to paint the eyes of the bat. So those eyes are dry. I'm just going to go in with this yellow and paint that in. So he has yellow eyes. I can do the teeth as well if I wanted the teeth to be yellow. And then I took this yellow and just kind of added one stroke over here on the right part of Frankenstein. Give him just a tiny bit of a highlight. Completely optional. You don't have to do that. And then for the bat, I did his wings and I made kind of a medium gray on my palette. So mixing black and white together to make kind of a medium gray. This is the number 4 round brush and I just went in with that gray. So it's just enough gray to show up against the black canvas to give it a little bit of contrast. It wouldn't really have made sense if I painted the wings black since the canvas is already black, would not have really showed, but doing that gray helps it to stand out just a little bit better. So I painted the wings, the medium gray color, and then I'm going to do 2 curved lines on the inside of both of those wings with the white before that gray dries. So just curved kind of a V line in between where that point is on both of those. And then I went back with black just to make that a tad bit darker. Again, optional if you like the look of the gray. Just wanted to go a shade darker there. Then if the yellow is dry enough, you can take the black and go in there and do 2 black circles. Next, I will do the little white dots that are in Frankenstein's eyes. So I did that with the number 4 round brush and titanium white. make sure I wipe that ferrule, because a lot of times if you don't wipe after you rinse, water will drip down the bristles and it'll make your little strokes watery and it would make a mess. So sometimes it's best practice to wipe the ferrule of the brush, that part where the bristles touch that middle piece, so that water doesn't run down when you're doing this. Especially important for doing little tiny things, just such as these little tiny dots in the eyes. So I did a bigger dot and a little dot going diagonal. Did the same thing for the bat, only those are much smaller, so I just did 2 little diagonal dots. If pumpkin ice cream is dry, we can go ahead and do the eyes in the chocolate syrup. So I'm going to start with the chocolate syrup. This is burnt umber. You can use any shade of brown for this. I just happened to grab the burnt umber, and this is number 4 round brush. So I'm doing a very similar thing that I did with Frankenstein, just doing drizzle, little curved line, little curved shapes that are kind of drizzling down for the chocolate syrup. And just on the top of the pumpkin, it's going underneath the stem. If you want, you can grab a little bit of white on the tip of your brush and blend that in gently with the brown. Just lets that brown, gives it a little bit of highlight, makes it look kind of three-dimensional. You don't have to do that. Just a tiny bit of white. That white tends to take over if you do too much on the brush. So just a teeny tiny bit on the tip of your brush. Then I'm going to do the face. So that was done with the Mars black. Load your 4 round in the black, and then I did triangles for the eyes and the nose. You can make your pumpkin face look different. I just did a very basic one. So 2 triangles, and then a 3rd triangle in the middle for the nose, a little bit shorter one. And then a very basic mouth with 2 pointed teeth. So I did a curve, point down, little bit of curve, point down, curve up. No teeth on the bottom, just a smile on the bottom, and fill that shape in solid. And then I did curved line on the bottom of ice cream just to give it a little bit of a shadowy area. Then I just added a few strokes of black down there at the bottom. And then on the inside of the glass, I'm outlining the in between the white line and where the colored part of the inside of the ice cream is, just to differentiate the inside of the glass from the edge of the glass. Gives it a little pop of contrast as well. Then I'm going to do some orange drippings. So this is a cute little touch you can do. Grabbing that white on there and mixing it with the orange so that it'll show up, but I'm just doing little drops of ice cream falling down on the left side of pumpkin, and of course a little puddle on the bottom. So I'll do another drop. Lots of details in this painting, and feel free to get creative and add your own things. If you wanted to do sprinkles on the bat, you can do that. Sprinkles on the pumpkin, different decorations on Frankenstein. So many different creative directions that you can go with this. I'm going to do just a few more details on here. The bat and the pumpkin both have straws, so this is a fun thing you can add, a fun little decoration. So for the straws, I did 2 lines and then an oval at the top, and then I painted it in solid white. So there's our first little straw sticking out of bat, and then he's got another one, and that one's going to be kind of behind him. So again, line, oval, and then another line to create the shape, and then filling it in solid white. So the reason why I'm filling it in solid white is because of the stripes. The stripes won't show up without the white base layer because of the black background. Then I'll go in and do the stripes. So let's do orange stripes for one of them. I'll rinse and dry. Wipe the ferrule so it's not dripping down, especially this is since this is a very small detail. So I'm just doing the orange and doing one stroked curved line up the straw for the stripes. I can outline the top oval if I wanted to. If you wanted to do a different color in between the white, you can go in with a different color. And then the other straw I'll do with purple. So that's the deep violet. I did the inside part of the oval and then stripes, curved stripes. And then I did another straw on pumpkin. The camera got cut off there, but I'm doing the exact same thing again that I did with the bat. So I did 2 lines and an oval shape and painted that in solid. So there is that straw. And then I can go back in and do the stripes. The next thing I'm going to do is add some fun swirl patterns in the background. You can do other designs if you wanted to. If you wanted to do like a spider web in the corner or polka dots, circles, I decided to do spirals. Just adds a fun, whimsical thing in the background so it's not plain. Or you can leave it plain. You don't have to add these to the background if you're not interested in the spirals. So it might look cute with the spider web in the corner, but I'm just going to go ahead and do simple spiral designs all over. So variety of different sizes. Some are a little bit smaller, some are larger, some are closer to the edge of the canvas. You can even do spirals on the sides of your canvas. My sides are already painted black. The final thing I'm going to do with this is, so once all this is dry, and if you have any chalk lines still showing anywhere, get a baby wipe. If you don't have a baby wipe, get a very soft washcloth or paper towel or Kleenex. You don't want anything that's going to shed, so the baby wipe I find to be very useful for this. But just gently erase all of your chalk lines very gently. You don't want to lift off any of the paint, but it gives it that nice clean look so there's no chalk still showing. And that is it, my friends. This is the conclusion of Halloween Treats painting tutorial. I did some spirals on the side, and that's it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me. I hope you enjoyed this one.